This is gonna be a fun video. If you are like me and you're always looking for fun and efficient ways to learn new skills, then you are going to love today's video. We will explore how you can supercharge your language learning using ChatGPT, and I will share very specific prompts and techniques that you can use to get the most out of this amazing tool. You are probably already familiar with ChatGPT. It's great at any task you can imagine, from writing essays and creating creative content to providing personal advice and even helping you create a dish by just showing it a picture of the dish. Coding, engineering tasks, you name it. Most importantly, it's exceptionally good at being your personal tutor who is available 24/7 to answer your questions and practice with you. So let's dive in and see how that works. This will be about GPT-4o, and I believe you can get a few prompts for free per day. Because your time is valuable, there will be timestamps so that you could skip to the prompt you're interested in. I will also compile all the prompts used here and put them somewhere down below. Let's start off with coming up with a learning plan. Having a system or a plan, even as a casual learner, makes it much easier to progress in measurable ways, which is ultimately more motivating. It's like when you have a structure, it's easier to fill in the blanks with actions. So I can ask ChatGPT to help me come up with a plan that is specific to my needs, my time, my learning style. Let's say I would like to learn German. For example, if I use the prompt, I want to create a structured plan to learn German as a beginner, practicing for 30 minutes each day. Can you help me design a detailed weekly schedule that includes specific activities for each day in a table format? I'd also like recommendations on where to start with grammar. Please provide specific activities and resources. Please also provide tips to stay motivated and track progress. Then I get a comprehensive balanced plan that ensures that I hit every element of the learning process, be it grammar, reading, writing, and so on, and with specific resources so that I don't have to spend time looking for them. Now that we have our plan, let's have some fun. So let's start off with vocabulary. There are several ways to go about this depending on your learning goals and where you are in your journey. But let's start off assuming that you're a complete beginner. You are probably familiar with the 80-20 rule, which basically states that 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort put in. And this rule is applied in various scenarios, from learning a new skill to business and economics. But when it comes to languages, let's say if a language has 1,000 words, then only 200 of them are enough for you to understand and be able to use the language. This is also what I talk about in my other video about common mistakes that language learners make, which is more vocabulary is not necessarily always better. So one way to apply this principle is to ask ChatGPT to create a table with the 200 most common words in your target language, including a translation and an example on how to use them, or however many words, depending on the language. But you can kind of use this as your North Star as you gradually incorporate more and more vocabulary in your learning journey. So you can print this table or convert it to flashcards or whatever your preferred method for learning vocabulary is. If you want to take it a level up, then you can ask it for a translation not into your preferred language, but rather into your target language using simple words. Or my favorite way of learning new vocabulary is creating subject-specific word clouds. If, for example, for this week my aim was to learn 20 new words in a certain area, say like dining, then a more fun way of doing that would be to ask it to create a word cloud of the 50 most common words in the setting of a restaurant, a doctor's office, whatever the thing may be. You can print it out and hang it on your desk, for example, so that it's easier to get more exposure to the new words over time. Spaced repetition is very important in learning a new language. You can even go all out and ask it to create it in a certain shape, like an apple or a certain color scheme. You get the point. All that just makes the process of learning new words a lot more fun. Next, let's look at conversation. There are fun ways you can use ChatGPT to practice conversation. One of them is simulation or role play. Which pretty much means simulating various everyday situations. I talked about this in a previous video, but basically this is one of the most effective ways of learning a new language, and one of the principles used at the Defense Language Institute in California to train you as military linguists who are among the fastest language learners in the world. An example prompt is, I would like to practice my German. Can you simulate a scenario where I interact with different characters in various settings? Please start with one sentence and wait for my response, correct my grammar, suggest better phrases if needed, and provide cultural tips throughout the conversation. For example, breakfast at a cafe, arrival at an airport, check-in at a hotel, dinner at a restaurant, whatever it is. But a second, more exciting prompt you could use to emphasize playing a certain role: I'd like to practice my German by engaging in some role-playing scenarios. Let's start with a scenario where I am a tourist visiting a new country. Please play the role of various characters I'll encounter during my trip. Start with one sentence and wait for my response. Throughout this adventure, please correct my grammar, suggest better phrases, and provide cultural tips relevant to the scenario. Or you can even get as creative as you want and tap into your specific interests. For example, engaging in a fantasy adventure role-playing scenario. Let's create a magical world where I'm a hero on a quest. You'll play various characters I'll encounter during my journey, or simulate an invasion of Earth by friendly aliens, or a mystery detective story, or time travel, whatever it is that you find fun and engaging. There is in fact mounting evidence that injecting fun into otherwise serious tasks and just gamifying it a bit unlocks our creativity and makes us more productive. For example, there's a study by Mayo Clinic, I believe, where in operating rooms, they found that in the most serious situations where life and death are involved, if the surgeons are taking the situation in a more light-hearted manner, cracking some jokes, playing some music in the background, it increases the chance for success because there is more communication among the team, and that eventually means that the teamwork is better and the task is performed better. When we are relaxed, our minds kind of just open up and bloom, whereas when we are stressed, our energy just kind of shrinks. So this speaks for trying to incorporate fun into any task basically. Now let's talk about writing. One of the great ways you can use ChatGPT to practice your writing is by asking it to be your teacher, giving you writing prompts on topics of interest to you and then correcting the assignments. For example, one prompt I like to use: I want to improve my writing in German. Can you give me a writing prompt with a creative twist, starting with simple topics for beginners? After I write, please provide feedback on my grammar, style, and vocabulary. Suggest better phrases where applicable. Here again, you can get very creative and tailor it to something you find very fun and engaging. Next, let's move on to grammar. There are several ways ChatGPT could simplify understanding grammar, as well as giving you exercises to practice and just acting as your teacher. The way I like to go about it is to first get a broad overview over all the grammar that I need to learn. So I might start with a prompt like, what are the broad categories of grammar in German? After it gives me the answer, then I will go by category. For example, can you please make a table about pronouns in German, including examples and any tips you have that might help me learn them easier? Other examples of great prompts you can use here to learn grammar include, can you explain the rules for using the past tense in your target language and give me 10 example sentences? Or, can you create a grammar quiz for me on the use of pronouns in target language with 10 questions? Can you give me a series of sentences in target language to fill in the blanks with the correct form of the verb? Or you can even make it a bit more challenging and ask for something like a short paragraph with deliberate mistakes for me to correct. And so on, like asking for multiple choice quiz and whatever exercise format you find helpful for you. Next, let's talk about speaking. So I think that the current version of ChatGPT Voice is great at English. So if you are learning English, you can definitely practice pronunciation with it and ask it to correct you. You can talk to it about anything really, it won't judge you. But I think it's not quite there yet for as far as I have tested it with other languages. And I also heard similar statements from other people who tried it. So I would not necessarily recommend it at this point in time for practicing speaking at languages other than English. But this could all change by next week. At the time that I'm recording this video, the new ChatGPT 4.0 voice features still haven't launched. And they might have fixed that. So I'll make sure to make a new video about this if this changes. Similarly, if you are familiar with custom GPTs, which are basically ChatGPT bots that are trained by users on specific tasks by providing a knowledge base for that task. In theory, they should be better, but it really depends on the specific user who trained them and what knowledge base / instructions they have given the custom GPT. So it could be a hit or miss, and I haven't really found some in my testing that stood out where I could recommend them really. So should you rely on ChatGPT alone solely for language learning? The answer is no, absolutely not. At least for the time being, this really doesn't substitute for human input. But maybe in the near or not so far future, it will be capable on its own. You never know. But the fact remains that it's still a very powerful and fun supplement for language learning. It's like you have a fun companion you can talk to about anything in any language. You are largely not bound by what you can find learning resources on, and you can create your own learning material that matches your interests. Practicing and learning are very important, but it's also equally important to avoid common mistakes that language learners make and that slow down progress. So if you are interested, check out this video I made on this. Or if you are interested in how ChatGPT works, then you can check out this video, which didn't get much love. So if you have some extra love to give, this would be a good place to put it. And I'll see you there.